I don't know if you've noticed this, but we have a real problem in America right now. We have a problem of Nazis and racists and communists and lions and tigers and bear. Oh my! What are we going to do? We have to have a real conversation about Nazis, racists, communists, Antifa. What is Antifa? Because some things they say really kind of good and right. Some things they do really bad. Are they an international organization? Are they a national organization? What do they really want? Who are they? Because you'll hear things like, I want a safe space. We disagree on what that means, but I think everybody should feel good. No racist, I'm for that. No Nazis, go Antifa. By any means, and smash the system. That's where it falls apart. But because they say no hate speech and no Nazis and no racists, they look like they're fighting against the bad guy. And when you think of fascists, at least in the movies, you'll think of Darth Vader. You'll think of the really bad guy wearing the black hat, always wearing the black hat. So you want to be on the other side, wearing the white hat. Except in this case, the white hat is fighting for the same thing, total control. You can't put the white hat on. You have to know who those are. You know you don't want to be in the black hat. What you really need is the American hat. That is where we begin. Antifa has been around for a really long time, even here in the United States. But what does it actually mean? We have to start here. Antifa. What is it? Well, Antifa is actually just a shortening of what they actually stand for. They are anti-fascist. That's what Antifa means. We know that Antifa's primary goal is to confront fascism wherever they detect it and to shut it down. That's why you'll hear the phrase, shut it down. You'll hear that a lot. We know that they are not a national organization, but a loose association of dozens of individual organizations, a little like the Tea Party was. They're mostly in larger cities around the US. They don't have a national headquarters or a national leader. In fact, a lot of Antifa members think of themselves as just a grassroots movement. So they're organized locally to oppose fascism. But what do they mean by fascism? Well, these guys, spooky dudes. The original Antifa groups in Europe formed to combat this man, Mussolini, and when he rose to power, Adolf Hitler. Bad guys. I want to be a part of a group that's fighting against those guys. Antifa says they're fighting the same form of fascism in America today. However, their definition of fascism has expanded over time. For instance, this is how Yvette Falarca defines it. Now, she's the leader of an Antifa group in California called By Any Means Necessary.
What is a fascist?
So a fascist is someone who's organizing a mass movement that's attacking women, immigrants, black people, other minority groups in a movement of genocide. That's what a fascist is.
Okay. So it's someone who's committing violence?
And it's someone who's committing violence and who's trying to organize other people to commit violence.
Some elements of the description were part of historic fascism, mainly the genocide in Nazi Germany. But today's Antifa opposes anything they define as oppressive. That's a problem. Notice she also defined a fascist as someone who's committing violence and who's trying to organize other people to commit violence. Well, Yvette, by your own definition, you would be a fascist. Watch.
Off our street! Get the off our
Are these people
Get
gonna get
off our street!
Hey, we don't have to give a speech?
Here you go, boy!
Hey, say we should be nice. Be nice. Come here now.
Off our streets! Get the off our street!
You, sir, please. I'm just here to protest. Please. Stand down. Get out. Get back.
Flarka helped organize the Berkeley protests, and she says activists ought to copy its tactics for other speakers and events around the country.
Yvette is facing charges for that attack and another violent encounter in September of 2017 in Berkeley, California. She is also a teacher at, get this, Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. Now, historic and American Antifa members do have one thing in common, and that is violence. They both engage in violence. Mussolini was an interesting guy. He invented fascism in 1919 when he founded a political party called Partito Nazionale Fascista. I'm butchering that, and all of my wife's relatives are rolling in their grave right now. But I ain't Italian, so here's what I do know. Fascista descended from the Latin word fasces, which is a bundle of sticks that the Romans used to symbolize their empire. In fact, we have them on either side of the House of Representatives. You can't take a bundle of sticks if they're all bound together. You can beat anyone. If you just have one stick, it can easily break. Mussolini thought it was his destiny to become a modern Caesar. His party, known as the Black Shirts, terrorized and assaulted their political opponents. They killed 2,000 of them between 1920 and 1922. Then comes Franco. A decade later, Mussolini and Hitler ruled over their own fascist regimes, and they helped this guy, Francisco Franco. He became a fascistic dictator of Spain. Their brand of fascism exalted the nation and the race above all else. The individual didn't matter. Only the state mattered. The dictators had unlimited authority and eliminated any opposition. They used parades and rallies and flags and media to spread the nationalist propaganda. This is what Antifa claims to be fighting against today. We saw in 2017 that they often use violence to do their work. Their violence is a conundrum for many on the left and in the mainstream media. On one hand, who doesn't want to be against guys like this? And unfortunately, a lot of people in Antifa and in the press have a real distaste for President Trump. They also cheer Antifa for confronting white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups. And it's hard not to cheer, who are blatantly offensive to most Americans, regardless of being on the left or the right. But then they can't. They can't really cheer because they can't condone Antifa's violence and destruction of property. So the mainstream media is caught. They can't be too hard, but they can't be too soft. They have to be just right. Usually, that means, unless you're in a fairy tale, you're eaten by a bear. Here's a sampling.
In other words, I think that Antifa has a very bad PR problem now. I don't know, they should have just called themselves anti-fascists because everybody in the world is anti-fascist. They call themselves Antifa, nobody knows what that means.
And then what we saw were some brave people risking their lives and putting themselves in between white supremacists and that, you know, and what they were doing.
One is they're fighting the fascism, and whether their tactics are right, you know, we can debate that.
Many media outlets don't even try to hide their glee at Antifa getting in a few punches. It's cathartic for someone on the left when an Antifa member sucker punched a white supremacist, Richard Spencer, on Inauguration Day in Washington, D.C.
But you're not a neo-Nazi.
Neo-Nazis don't love me. They kind of hate me, actually.
Following the KKK, neo-Nazi.
Those people don't like me,
Are you
to be
like
honest.
the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
The Nation magazine described the punch as an act of kinetic beauty. In fact, Jonathan Favreau, a member or former speechwriter for the President Obama, spoke for many on the left when he tweeted, "I don't care how many different songs you set to Richard Spencer being punched in the face, but I'll laugh at every one." I will tell you, I kind of felt the same way. I'm not a defender of Richard Spencer in any way whatsoever. What he says and stands for is crazy, repulsive. I mean, do I have to even say this? He's a Nazi. Opposition to Richard Spencer and his ilk isn't the problem. Drawing more attention to them may be even worse than assaulting them. The right makes fun of the left, and the left makes fun of the right. But parody is not the answer and isn't the issue here. It's the failure to pause and get to the root of the Nazis, the white supremacists, and Antifa, the masked activists. Who are they really? Antifa unnerves Americans on both sides of the aisle because they're willing to break the law, they're willing to injure people and destroy property, and because they believe they have the moral imperative which excuses that violence. Nonetheless, many on the left still sympathize with Antifa. Unfortunately, white supremacists and neo-Nazis are nothing new to America. So why is Antifa so suddenly interested in confronting them? Because of their politics. Their politics, namely those alt-right fringe groups that support this guy, Donald Trump. I kind of feel like Sesame Street when I say one of these things just doesn't belong. But here's how the media enables Antifa, by blaming boogeyman Trump. Mike Kessler, a reporter for The New Republic, was covering an Antifa protest in Berkeley when he was attacked by the group who stomped on his smartphone and stole his camera. Yet he writes about one of his attackers. He said, quote, "I felt sorry for him. I could see the real pain in his eyes and knew he was angry for a litany of legitimate reasons, from the president's response to Charlottesville to the pardoning of Joe Arpaio in the Trump-fueled rise of white supremacists," end quote. So let's just follow this logic. It's okay that they stole his camera and broke his phone because of Donald Trump. It gets worse. Kessler also wrote, to be clear, there's no equivalence between white supremacists and Antifa. One has a message of hate and the other seeks to stop that hate. Here's the problem. He actually witnessed the Antifa attack on the photographer. Yet, he still gives the moral upper hand to Antifa. Kessler said to the Antifa thug who stole his own camera, "Dude, I'm on your side." Kessler explained that he meant the side that finds white supremacists repugnant. Well, I'm on that side too. Antifa's violence may make some on the left uncomfortable, but generally they're not speaking out. Why? Because Antifa's side is opposing the president. Their mindset is that Donald Trump is so bad that he's causing these poor, disaffective activists to lash out. Yeah, they shouldn't break stuff, but their hearts are in the right place. Now, before you, if you're on the right, gets onto your high horse and gloats too much, they do the same thing to excuse Donald Trump on the right. The left is so extreme. The press is out of control. The press is so out of control that we should suspend the First Amendment and take away their right to free speech. No, they're both wrong. Remember, black hat, white hat, American hat. The irony of the left wringing their hands over Antifa is that Antifa is not conflicted about how they feel about liberals. They don't like them. Antifa does not care for the Democratic Party's progressive agenda. Antifa is following an entirely different playbook. At the Milo Yiannopoulos protests in Berkeley, February 2017, Antifa spray-painted this message around town: liberals get the bullet too. Antifa members are socialists, they're communists, and they're anarchists. Those are not my labels for them. That's how they label themselves. They often refer to each other as comrades. It's not a secret, it's just that the mainstream media doesn't generally report about these things. Antifa, because they think Trump poses more of a threat than communists and anarchists marching through our streets, with shivs and Molotov cocktails, that they'll use them to get rid of the president and then things will calm down. But we know Antifa opposes fascism. We know their definition of fascism is broader than it was in 1930s Europe. We know that they often use violence to shut down fascism. Yet the left and the media largely sympathize with their cause. But here's the problem that people have a hard time getting their arms around. I mean, take this guy down who, you could be a fan or not a fan, but he doesn't belong with these three. And stopping these three, wouldn't that be good? We examine that question and explore the roots of this movement next time.